Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're located. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's .org community webinar, 3 key strategies to develop impactful microcredential programs with Ashish from BenchPrep. I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping items before we continue. All attendees are muted at the start of the webinar. Please feel free to submit questions and comments via the chat in Zoom. And the presentation and a link to the recording will be sent to you after the event. .org community is a CAE registered provider for those of you needing recertification or initial certification credits. Now I'd like to welcome Ashish Rangnekar from BenchPrep. And Ashish, I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you. Let me share my slides and we will get started. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I am very excited to be talking about 3 key strategies to develop impactful microcredential programs. Let's start a little bit about me. My name is Ashish Rangnekar. I am the CEO and co-founder of BenchPrep. Most importantly, I am a lifelong learner, and currently I am learning everything I could about AI, as I'm sure a lot of you are. But specifically, I'm trying to make sense of all of these LLM models out there, and which one is going to be best for us to use to improve lifelong learning. As you can see, it took me a degree in mechanical engineering and applied mathematics and an MBA to figure out what my real passion is, which is to help elevate everyone's potential through learning. And with that vision in mind, more than a decade ago, I founded BenchPrep. What is BenchPrep? Who is BenchPrep? Our mission is to enable associations and credentialing bodies to drive revenue growth and learner success. And I feel really lucky and humbled that we get to enable some of the leading associations across verticals. You look at technology, we work with CompTIA, AWS, ISACA. Finance, we work with CFA Institute, Kaya Association, fraud examiners, AAMC, bar examiners, you name it. And we are doing this at large scale. Just last year, we added 1.4 million learners to the platform. Every month, roughly 350,000 learners are actively learning on BenchPrep. And we deliver north of 500 million assessments each year. All this to say that we are in it, we are knee deep in this space. We are thinking about this every day. And this topic of microcredentials is top of the mind for us. I know it's top of the mind for all of you. And hence we decided to talk about it as part of this webinar. So let me highlight the agenda for today. First, we will briefly touch upon what microcredentials are. Then we'll review the market size, what's happening in the market that triggers the benefits of microcredentials. And then we'll kind of get into the 3 strategies to develop microcredential programs. And we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. Now I'm going to turn off the camera so that we can focus on the content, and I'll kind of come back in towards the end when we do the Q&A. Okay, so let's start with the definition first. While there is no universal definition that everyone has agreed upon, broadly speaking, I would characterize microcredentials as these short competency and learning-based recognition programs. Completing a microcredential provides very strong evidence to potential employers that this individual has mastered the skill necessary to succeed in a specific job, role, or even a specific knowledge base. They typically involve, micro-credentials typically involve completing either one course or a series of courses and finally passing an assessment. This assessment tends to be medium or low stake. The unique characteristics of micro-credentials is that they focus more on this specific actionable competency rather than this broader educational achievement. So when I compare a micro-credential to a degree program or even a certification, it's the specificity and the narrowness of it which makes it unique. The barrier to entry is lower, the cost is lower, and the specificity is higher. Let's look at the market. And this question is important because, we all should be questioning or thinking, like, why should our organizations develop micro-credential? What is it about this segment that is attractive? Well, the number one reason is that this is the fastest growing segment in the industry. And this highlights very strong demand. Professionals are asking for it. Learners are demanding it. This is quickly becoming an integral part of the lifelong learning journey. In 2019, the micro-credentialing industry was valued at $9.9 billion. It's estimated to double by 2025. More than 1 million micro-credentials are being offered in United States. Now, this includes colleges and universities that are offering micro-credentials. This includes credit and non-credit micro-credentials, but you can kind of begin to understand the scale of the change that is happening right in front of us. From an employer perspective, 72% of employers tend to employ a candidate who holds a micro-credential. There are several global companies that have started to hire candidates who have micro-credentials rather than a university degree. This trend it's in early stages, but we know that the direction of travel is going to be towards micro-credential. And that's why when we actually look at from a demand perspective, 90% of students or recent graduates have said that micro-credentials enable them to stand out to potential employers. More and more students are opting for alternate credentials, micro-credentials than ever before. And all this presents a new exciting opportunity for associations, credentialing bodies, and learning organizations to really lean in and listen to our stakeholders, listen to the professionals and the employers, and give them what they want, which is micro-credentials. So let's talk about the key drivers here. We'll kind of get into the strategies in a second. But there are, from a value perspective, this framework has value for everyone. For employers, these programs ensure that workers develop very specific, high demand, although narrow, but very much real-time skills. For learners, it's very clear that micro-credentials offer a way to quickly acquire demonstrable skills with minimal investments of time and money. Typically, a degree program would be tens of thousands of dollars, would last minimum of 18 months to anywhere around 3 to 4 years. Micro-credentials tend to be smaller, 1 month to 6 months, hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, and have an ability to focus on a very specific skill rather than go broad. And that's why there are a lot of benefits for the associations. I mean, this is a way for associations to drive member engagement, to boost retention, to increase long-term value by creating a continuous learning pathway that is tailored to industry need and the specific needs of a profession. And see, ultimately, microcredentials strengthen the relationship between the organization, either its association or credentialing body, and its constituents, the members, the professionals. And it does it in a way that meets the demand of the modern workforce development. So this just happens to be this is an amazing way for all the stakeholders to be aligned, employers, members, and the business needs of the professional association. Now let's dive into the 3 strategies. Now we have had the good fortune of working with many associations who are thinking about microcredentials, who have launched microcredentials, who have seen success, who have seen the challenges, and these strategies is something that we have essentially learned from doing this for a long time. So while we talk about these strategies, I'll also kind of give you some real life examples of how some associations have deployed these strategies and how it's working for them. Okay, so first strategy is top of the funnel. If your goal is to expand your customer base, adopting a top of the funnel strategy is a very highly effective way of doing that. This approach helps learning organizations attract new learners, particularly those who are exploring or entering a career pathway, those who are very early in their journey. For the learner, these microcredentials offer a very low cost, low commitment way to enhance their skills, to just kind of dip their toe in the water to figure out if this is something that they really want to do before they embark on a larger certification or a degree program. These are very foundational microcredentials, I would call them. And they're a great way for learners to kind of figure out if and how they would want to grow their careers. Getting these microcredentials, we have seen makes the students or learners more attractive in the eyes of an employer. It certainly enables career mobility in much less time than a traditional degree. When it comes to assessments, these are typically kind of low and medium stakes assessments, basic assessments with some online proctoring or browser lockdown. So the learner is not expected to schedule an exam and find time to drive 30 miles and sit for a 3-hour exam. These are much lower stake, and hence the barrier to entry is much lower. And no matter the assessment type, these microcredentials are marketable and are really good for someone who is just starting in their career. There are 2 really good examples of this. I'll walk you through both of them very quickly. I would recommend you guys to spend more time looking at these examples. I would call these as gold standards of someone who has done a really good job of top of the funnel micro-credentialing programs. So let's first look at the CFA Institute one. So CFA Institute is a leading certification body or professional association for investment professionals. They launched this micro-credential, they call it a certificate program called Investment Foundations. And I'll walk you through exactly how they market it. The Investment Foundation certificate provides learners with an overview of the essentials of finance, ethics, and investment rules. You can see this is kind of targeting someone who is early in their career. It highlights that it will benefit those in roles such as marketing, sales, project management, human resources, so on and so forth, looking for advancing one's career. So this is not targeting the core investment groups. This is targeting groups that are on the periphery of the investment teams, someone who might be actually considering entering the field, or someone who actually interacts with a lot of people who are in the investment world. So this is truly top of the funnel. And as you can see, this is, there are 6 courses, roughly 60 to 90 hours of total time. So this is not a 1 year or 2 year program. The delivery is very flexible. It's completely self-paced and online. And at the end, there's an online exam, 100 questions, multiple choice. Similarly, ISACA has this. ISACA is another association in the information security and audit space. They have a computing fundamentals certificate program. Another micro-credential that is targeting the top of the funnel. People who are thinking about this as a career, are early in the journey. And as you can see here, it calls out the same thing. Who would benefit from computing fundamentals? Students and recent graduates. This is a really good way for ISACA to tap into the broader demographics right when students and graduates are considering what career to pursue. And it has certain courses, labs, study guides, and so on and so forth. And there's an actual exam. This one is online, remote proctored 2-hour exam with a pass score of 65%. Okay, so that was top of the funnel. The second strategy is diversification. If your learning organization is seeking ways to keep your current members engaged as they progress in their career, diversification is the right strategy. Right? So the top of the funnel was kind of someone who was early in their career. Diversification is someone who I would say would be in the middle of their career journey. This strategy allows associations to create specific specialty pathways that focus on a particular topic. This is a great way to upsell and monetize existing learners while keeping them up to date on relevant skills. From a learner perspective, again, it's low cost and low commitment. And most importantly, it allows them to focus on a specific knowledge area or a skill area or a relevant topic, which is in high demand at a given time in their specific industry. And let's take another example from CFA Institute. So CFA Institute created this certificate in ESG investing. Their core audience is the investment industry or the investment professionals. Now, some of those investment professionals are very interested in ESG investing. Rather than trying to kind of add ESG investing as part of their core certification, they decided to create a specialty micro-credential around ESG investing. And you can see it. With this certificate, you, as in the learner or the professional, will be well positioned to meet the growing demand for ESG investing and succeed in the evolving investment landscape. So this is a classic middle of the funnel micro-credential strategy. And as you say, as you can see, the way they talk about this is this helps you stay relevant in the rapidly evolving industry. This is not about entering into the space. This is about staying up to date and staying relevant. And again, this is a 6-month, roughly a 6-month program. At the end, you actually get an exam, 100 questions, multiple choice. You can take it online, or you can walk into a testing center. And at the end of it, you actually get a certificate, which actually helps you advance your career, specifically around ESG investing. There's another example. ISACA does a good job of it as well with their cybersecurity audit certificate. And the link would be in the deck, so you guys can look at it as well. Okay. The third strategy is stackable credentials. Now, before I get into the detail, let me highlight, for the last 20 minutes, we have been talking about how one of the key aspects of micro-credentials promise is that they are small and they have fewer barriers to entry in terms of time and cost as we compare it to a degree or even a bigger, broader certification. But given that, they can also take learners so far. There is a limitation on the marketability and the value of it. This is where stackability comes in. By stacking these micro-credentials, either on top of each other or creating a pathway, they can be combined to make a much more meaningful overall set of qualifications to help someone enter into a new career or advance in their career. That is where the stackable strategy comes in. And let me actually start with an example here, because American Medical Technologists Association does a very good job of stacking. And I'll actually kind of link this blog article as well. They do multiple types of stacking. They do a horizontal stacking and a vertical stacking. Horizontal stacking is to help someone move along a career pathway, while vertical stacking is for someone to advance up in the career ladder. And as you can see, they do a really good job of combining the micro-credentials with the bigger certifications. So if you look at the horizontal stacking, someone would start with the Registered Medical Assistant RMA certification. This is the bigger, broader certification. And then they would stack it with a ESG certificate, which is a narrower, smaller micro-credential program. And as they go about doing it, this is kind of a regular upskilling of the credentials, leading them to accumulate skills that really makes their career grow faster. Vertical stacking is another way. Vertical stacking, as it says, can be thought of as climbing the career ladder, which again can combine certifications and micro-credentials. And you might start with a base certification, but then you kind of add a bunch of education and qualify for the next level. And maybe the micro-credential allows you to, it can be used as a qualification mechanism for the next level of education or the next level of certification. Again, ISACA also has kind of few examples of this. Other associations have done this well. Stackable is a more long-term play. You need to have several certifications and several micro-credentials to be able to create a stackable strategy. But I would say in the long run, this is where it all comes together. From a learner perspective, they are looking to advance their career, not just this year, but for the next 10, 15, 20 years. They might start with top of the funnel micro-credential, get the base certification, get the next specialized diversified micro-credential. What's next? So from a strategy perspective, we have seen more and more leading associations begin to think about stackability as their long-term. So let me kind of recap all this for you. Now that you know the value of micro-credentials, both from a learner and organization perspective, at some point you'll have to decide like, which is the right strategy for you. What is your team's goal when you develop a new micro-credential program? And this is a great way to look at it. If the goal is expanding customer base, top of the funnel is the way to go. If the goal is to re-engage existing members, diversification is the way to go. At the end of the day, I believe everything would actually become stackable. If you already have enough micro-credentials and certificate programs and certifications, then using a stackable strategy to optimize the learner journey for your stakeholders becomes a very important strategy. What's next for me as in kind of what's next for you all as you think about it? And this micro-credential is a segment and a product category that is absolutely here to stay. We all are going to see explosive growth in this over the next few years. Today, we talked about the why, which is deciding on the goal of the micro-credentialing program, which has to be the starting point. Once you decide on the goal, the next two steps become the what and the how. Once you decide that this is top of the funnel for you, that would dictate the program design. How big should it be? How many hours? What kind of content assets should go into it? How should you price it? Typically, we see top of the funnel, which actually caters to students or graduates or someone who was early in the career, to be priced more competitively as compared to specialty micro-credentials. What is the go-to-market strategy? Is the channel the higher ed channel or existing customers? And then comes the how. Once you kind of know the program design and such, then it becomes a question of how do you resource it? Do you try to do this internally, or do you work with industry partners to do it? What is the budget and the timeline? So essentially, this is a process of actually kind of launching this exciting, growth-oriented micro-credential programs. Today, we talked about why. The next two questions becomes what and how. And we spend a lot of time working with our customers, not only on the why bit, but the what and how as well. So although I'm not going to cover it in today's webinar, but if this is of interest to you, I'm more than happy to lean in, indulge, and have a discussion on this. But having said that, the first question is why, and I'm hopeful that the discussion today, or the webinar today, and the framework that we presented would help you get to the why and the specific goal for your organization. Thank you. That's all I had. Any questions for me? I'll bring back the...
We do have a question. Are associations offering their micro-credentials side by side in their LMS, or do they have a separate LMS for the micro-credentials?
So excellent question. The space is evolving. I would say the actual answer is all over the place. I think there are a few associations that have an LMS that does continuing education. It cannot do a good job on micro-credentials, so they use a specialty LMS or vice versa. I can tell you that in steady state, the right answer is to have a single LMS. And the reason for that is that ability to connect the data between continuing education, exam prep, micro-credentials, certificate programs, certifications is the absolute necessity. Once you can connect the data, that is when you can actually help create a personalized pathway. So I would say the steady state and the way you should kind of design it is to have everything on the same LMS.
Thank you. Another question. What are the most effective ways to measure the impact of micro-credential programs?
I would say, first of all, it depends on the strategy. If the strategy is, for example, top of the funnel strategy, then the most effective way to measure is adoption, number of people taking the micro-credential. The entire goal of that strategy is to kind of get more and more people to adopt. If the strategy is diversification, which is more about kind of creating specialty pathways, I would say some form of satisfaction is important. These are your existing customers. You're actually kind of offering them a specialty micro-credential. They need to see value for them in the labor marketplace. So satisfaction is another one that we have seen. When it comes to stackability, I would say the most important measure is follow through. How many people actually go from one certification to the next micro-credential to the certification? And I think that is where ability to kind of connect the dots become very important.
Okay, and then we'll do one last quick question since we're right at the top of the hour. So, and it may not be a quick answer, but this is a fast evolving market. So what trends do you foresee in the evolution of micro-credentials?
So, I mean, first of all, I would say that this is going to be a very big, exciting growth market for all of us. So, I mean, it's not really kind of a trend, but I would say that this is almost kind of a reality. There are two things that we would see over the next 12 months. So I think first is just convergence of micro credentials and certification programs. I think right now it's like it's all kind of combined, and we don't see like too much differentiation. We're going to see more of that convergence happening. So most of the associations, the new programs that they're launching are smaller micro-credentials, not large certification programs. In fact, some associations are considering breaking down their larger certifications into smaller micro-credential programs. So you would actually see these two kind of worlds kind of coming closer and closer together. Another trend I would say is, and this is not specific to micro-credentials, but overall, learning and assessment are coming together. We used to live in a world where learning happens, somewhere else, and certifications or verification happens somewhere else. Micro-credential as a product is bringing those two together. I mean, as you can see, each micro-credential example that I gave had 100 hours of learning, which is non-trivial, and also an exam. So I think just these two things kind of coming together in a single product is something that we're going to see more and more as micro-credentials become more important and integral.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Ashish and BenchPrep, for sharing all of the strategies and the great examples for micro-credentialing with our audience. Thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and contact information and the recording will be included in the post-event email. Thank you very much.